Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Our webinar today is about the impact of excess heat on workplace injuries. My name is Joe Petrucci, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager here at the Pennsylvania Compensation Rating Bureau. And we're delighted to have you join us today for this important discussion on how rising temperatures are influencing workplace injuries and what that means, right, for insurers, employers, and workers alike. Before we begin, let's just go through some brief housekeeping notes. Our webinar today will run approximately 45 minutes. Please use the Q&A tab in Microsoft Teams to submit your questions throughout the session. We'll address them at the very end during our dedicated Q&A segment. Recording of this session and our report on this topic will be available on our website, PCRB.com, in the Industry Reports section. And let's talk about the rising heat. Indeed, the heat is on. With global temperatures rising and heat waves becoming more frequent, our workplaces are now facing new safety challenges, and especially in outdoor industries, which is a big reason why we tackled this research. And our research analyzed 11 years of workers' compensation claims data from Pennsylvania to better understand how excessive heat influences these workplace injuries. So what we found, we feel, is both informative and actionable, which is why we wanted to gather folks today. And we hope to provide you with key insights and trends, some of the industry impacts, and as well as a discussion around risk mitigation. We'll explore these findings today with two of my esteemed colleagues. First, we have Peter Yoon, our Director of Actuarial Research. He will walk us through the key data points, including challenges that are associated with assessing heat-related injury trends, some of those temperature thresholds at which we see some of the biggest impact, as well as seasonal influences. Then Brent Otto, our Vice President of Actuarial Services and our Chief Actuary, he will discuss which industries are most affected, the broader implications for employers and insurers, and what steps could be taken to potentially mitigate some of these changes. Our agenda for today's session is as follows. First, we will look at heat-related injuries in focus. We'll examine the link between rising temperatures and increased workplace injuries using historical workers' compensation claims data. Two, the temperature threshold. We'll examine that by identifying the critical temperature points at which the rate of heat-related injuries significantly increases. Third, we'll begin untangling heat from seasonality, differentiating the effect of heat from seasonal work fluctuations to better understand the true impact there. Four, we'll look at the industries most affected. We'll highlight which industries are experiencing the greatest impact from excessive heat and why they're at higher risk. Fifth, we'll look ahead and we'll explore a little bit how heat-related workplace injuries may continue to evolve with climate trends and what that might mean for insurers and employers. Sixth, call it rising to the challenge, and this is our discussion about potential mitigation strategies, including employer interventions, policy changes, and industry best practices. Seven, our Q&A. We'll open our discussion with all of you to address any questions and provide further clarity on any of these topics. So with that, let's turn up the heat. And Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So we're experiencing the hottest decade in recent history. Extreme heat doesn't just cause heat-related illness, but it also raises the risks of workplace accidents, likely due to fatigue, dehydration, and reduced focus. And for this research, we looked at the heat-related claims over 11-year period from 2012 to 2022. And for metrics, we used air temperature. And we also use two sets of unit statistical code, nature of injury code 32 and 90, 32 is heat prostration, 90 is multiple physical injury. We're also using a cause of injury code. 3 is temperature extremes, and 99 is others. And to identify the heat-related claims, we use a combination of these two sets, nature of code and cause of injury code. And we use a 32 and 3 combination, 32 and 99 combination, and 90 and 32 combination. And for 90 and 99 combination, only claims identified as heat-related are included. Another thing is we excluded volunteer fireman class 994 because it is difficult to know if the claim is related to excessive heat or job related. We identified around 11,000 claims, but the claim numbers fluctuate from year to year, and the spotting clear trend isn't always easy. And our researchers tried to find the connection between rising temperature and workplace injuries. And over the next few slides, I'll walk you through the findings that support it. Okay, so this slide shows the distribution of heat-related claims by year. The annual number of heat-related claims fluctuates significantly over time. In 2014, the number of claims was the lowest with 67 claims, and 2018 has the highest with 173 claims. So some years experienced a sharp increase in claims. Other years had noticeably fewer heat-related claims. And this year-to-year variability makes it difficult to identify clear patterns. This graph shows the percentage of heat-related claims versus days with high temperature. This trend becomes clearer when examining the percentage of heat-related claims relative to total claims over 2 time periods. Between 2012 and 2017, heat-related claims made up about 0.25% of all claims, with an average of 51 days per year over 80 degrees. From 2018 to 2022, that percentage increased to 0.35%, and the number of hot days rose to 62 days per year. That's about 36% jump, and it shows the link between higher temperature and an increase in heat-related claims. We also looked at the severity of claims. The majority of heat-related injuries are less severe, with the average claim severity of $3,100. And about 96% of these claims are medical only, meaning most injuries require minimal treatment and don't result in lost time claims. Later, Brent will mention about the impact on workers' compensation costs, including the impact on loss cost. We also examined the relationship between heat-related claims and number of hot days to determine the temperature threshold that has the greatest impact on workers' compensation claim. This slide shows the distribution of heat-related claims. The analysis, based on data from May to September between 2012 and 2022, shows a clear trend of rising workers' compensation claims as temperature increases. Claims peak when daily maximum temperature reaches between 85 and 90 degrees, and interestingly, up to 85 degrees. There are more hot days than claims, but above 85 degrees, this trend actually reverses, and number of heat-related claims outpace the number of hot days. So it appears that 85 is a critical threshold. We looked at the relationship between heat-related claims and days with a high temperature. The data from 2012 to 2022 shows a clear trend. As the number of days with temperature above 80 degrees increases, heat-related claims also rise. So months with more hot days typically experience a higher number of claims. Now let's dive in a little deeper into the relationship between heat-related claims and the number of hot days. Claims tend to rise during warmer months as some industries have more activities during warmer months. And it is important to determine whether that increase is driven by excessive heat or heightened seasonal activity. And to account for seasonality, PCRB analyzed the proportion of heat-related claims relative to total claims each month. While July has the most heat-related claims, August sees the highest total number of claims overall. And as you see, the increase in heat-related claims does not align perfectly with the rise in total claims. And this tells us that factors beyond the seasonality are at play. If excessive heat had no impact on workers' compensation claims, we'd expect heat-related claims to increase proportionally with the total number of claims, which is not the case here. This graph shows the percentage of heat-related claims by month, and in this graph, we adjusted for seasonality. If seasonality alone were driving the number of heat-related claims, we'd expect their percentage to remain relatively stable at around 20% across all months. But the percentage of heat-related claims is higher in June, July, and August compared to May and September. So the rising temperature rather than seasonality alone are the contributing to the increase in heat-related claims. Now, I'll turn it over to Brent, and he will share insights on industries most affected, why this issue matters to us, and the key limitations and challenges.
Thank you, Peter. Can you see my screen okay? You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Thank you. So what do the patterns look like by industry group? Well, an industry group is, as a reminder, is a collection of related business classifications commonly grouped together to consolidate data for better data analysis. We will look at similarities and differences across 5 industry groups. Those groups are contracting, manufacturing, office and clerical, goods and services, and miscellaneous. These are the generally used industry groups across all states and good for benchmarking across states. While the study focused on outdoor workers and their classifications, this particular study did encompass about 2/3 of our overall total number of classifications, which is roughly 300 direct employment classes. So looking at heat-related claims by industry group, we first can look at the dark blue bars, which shows the percent of heat-related claims, and the light blue bars, which shows the percent of total exposure, which is payroll for workers' compensation, these industry groups comprise. And likely not surprising, contracting has the highest percentage of heat-related claims at about 31%, but account for only about 6% of the total payroll. On the flip side, office and clerical makes up about 7% of the heat-related claims, but makes up over 60% of the total exposure. If we look at some of the other groups, we see that manufacturing and goods and services combine to account for about 45% of the heat-related claims and about 28% of the total payroll. Again, this is probably not overly surprising if you are familiar with the types of classes and work being done in these industry groups. The miscellaneous group includes some of the unique and more heavy exposure classes such as mining and logging, And this group sees about 17% of the heat-related claims, and again, a much smaller portion of the overall exposure. Now, let's look at how these claims are distributed within the various industry groups. Well, we've talked about the various heat-related thresholds. Peter mentioned that and showed that in some of the previous graphs. And what we're seeing here is these thresholds and the number of claims really carry over directly across all the industry groups. While some industry groups have more heat-related claims, like we just saw in the last slide for contracting, they all show a significant jump in number of claims when the temperatures rise from 75 to 80 degrees. This also shows that the number of claims peaked when temperatures were in the 85 to 90 degree range. And the number of claims in the above 90 degree range are also pretty high. And this is somewhat surprising given that there are much fewer days on average above 90 degrees. What this shows is the importance of the awareness of managing this risk across all types of classifications. All businesses, to some degree, can be subject to heat-related claims. So far, I hope you found the data and metrics very insightful. However, why does this matter? And what does it mean for employers and the workers' compensation system? It seems there's not an immediate need for a large-scale sweeping regulation. However, employers and workers need to be aware of shifting patterns and continually looking at things that can be done to keep workers safe. As Peter mentioned, while 96% of the claims are what we call medical-only claims, which means that the worker does not miss at least 7 days of work, and have a fairly low average cost at about $3,000, it does not mean that there were not any severe or costly claims related to heat. We also have to be aware that depending on how the data is coded, there likely are a few claims that are not coded as heat-related, but resulted in severe injuries such as strokes or heart attacks. And so if it's not coded that way, we can't necessarily tie some of those claims to heat. But within our data, we did see there were some severe claims, such as heart attacks or strokes, that were driven from a heat-related event. So the data is not perfect, but together with better data coding and awareness, we can work together to manage the frequency of claims and improve the potential for future analysis. From the perspective of employers, employers have new technologies coming available to them every day that may help mitigate heat-related and other types of claims. For example, newer, better biometric monitors and wearable devices are seen as an emerging way to monitor the health and safety of employees. Also, technologies such as cameras or drones can also be useful to monitor a variety of workplace scenarios that might help identify the need for breaks or signs of exhaustion. These technologies, as I said, continue to become available and merge and become cheaper to implement across an organization as time moves forward. More awareness of employees' limits will allow for better workplace safety guidelines, maybe the implementation of cooling zones, water breaks, and the like. Maybe some of you know of other emerging practices being implemented within your business. That's a question. If you have any thoughts on that, you can post that in the Q&A. Understanding these mitigating efforts and how they change over time is very important for interpreting the data and the continued effectiveness of and quantifying the impacts. With any study, there are always data limitations, things that could be done to further the study. For example, pursuing monthly employment data might help us further refine the analysis and the seasonality adjustments that Peter mentioned. Also, while we looked at 11 years of data, to really assess long-term impacts, it would be interesting to study even longer periods of times across multiple decades. Comparing results based on using the heat index versus temperature might also provide some different insights, but carries new data challenges as well. Aside from some of the limitations, within the scope of this particular study, we feel this was a very good first step for understanding the issue and the impacts within the Pennsylvania workers' compensation system. As an industry, we will need to continue to meet the challenge for understanding this issue and its impacts, whether it is additional data elements, better data coding, or clear employment rules or regulations. We are in this together. The good news is that the workers' compensation pricing system is very robust, and it's set up to automatically account for the dynamic and changing environment. The pricing system adjusts rates for both increasing and decreasing scenarios. An example of increasing scenario might be having more hot days on average, leading to more heat-related claims. A decreasing scenario might relate to the use of new technologies to better prevent these claims from even occurring. Either way, the system is ready, and through the pricing process, it will automatically adjust loss costs up or down over periods of time to react to the ever-changing environment. So the system is ready. So next we have an opportunity to answer some of your questions that you may have. So at this point, Joe, do we have any questions already in the queue?
Joe, we can hear you.
Why did you use air temperature rather than heat index, and where did you get the data from? That was sorry, that was chatted to me. But please feel free to use the Q&A tab at the top of your Teams window. Again, the question for everybody, and I can put it in the Q&A: why did you use air temperature rather than the heat index, and where did you get the data from?
Okay, I can answer that question. So there are several reasons to use air temperature instead of heat index for examining the impact of excessive heat on workers' compensation claim. Now, first, air temperature is a straightforward metric that is commonly used and understood by general public, employers, and workers. Second, air temperature data is widely available from weather stations and public record, and it makes it easier to collect and analyze. Third, unlike heat index, which depends on the humidity levels that vary significantly by region, air temperature provides a more consistent measure. And fourth, using air temperature avoid the need to calculate heat index, which can introduce additional complexity and potential for error in data processing. We obtained our air temperature data from Penn State University Climatologist Department.
I would also add to that that we did do a little bit of exploration of using the heat index in relation to temperature, and it did show in a lot of respects some similar patterns, but we felt, like Peter just mentioned, there were some overall deficiencies for using that exclusively within this particular study.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Brent, for tackling that question. I have another question here that was chatted. Do heat-related claims indicate potential long-term shifts in the workers' compensation system? Brent, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I can take that one. So like I just mentioned, in terms of the workers' compensation system, it is really robust. So that the process that's taken for the rate making looks at historical data. So as trends or environmental trends change, and even those that take a long period of time to change, the system itself will naturally adjust. Now, if we were to see more of a dramatic change in any given point in time, where we feel like it's no longer gradual and more of a sharp increase or decrease, right? That might be a situation that we would need to react to differently. But overall, for this particular topic, we don't see this changing that dramatically, that quickly, where the system wouldn't be able to keep up with it. But obviously, it's something that we would need to continue to monitor over longer periods of time.
Thank you, Brent. We do have another question in the Q&A from Antara. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, Antara. The question is, any chance of expanding this study by looking into the medical data call data? I don't know if either of you would like to take a stab at that.
You want to take that one, Peter?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's that's the area that we have to take a look at it. I think we can collect and take a look at the medical call data. We actually used medical call data to identify some hit-related claims. But as I said earlier, we look at the medical call data only for the combination of 90 and 99, nature of injury and cause of injuries. So I think that's a really good question, and I think we have to expand our research using medical call data.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you again for the question. So we'll put out a last call for questions here. We're coming up on 10:30. And looking like we can give back some time to folks' day, which is always a plus. I'm not seeing any further questions at this time. I would like to just take a moment to thank you all for attending and for participating today. Again, we felt this was an important research brief that we wanted to share additional insights with all of you. We hope that the discussion today has provided a little more insight into the impact of excessive heat on workplace injuries, and then some of what those implications might be, for all of us in insurance and risk management. So we hope you'll stay connected and follow us on LinkedIn and stay connected on our website at PCRB.com for more research and updates. We will be sharing this recording as well as the presentation deck with all of you who attended today in short order. So expect to see an email from us on that. And on behalf of all of us at PCRB and Peter, Yoon, and Brent, Otto, and myself, I thank you for your time today. Stay safe and have a great rest of your day.